Has it finally gone live? Let's see. 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, I see what happened. So it looks like the stream did go live, but it didn't go live in the proper place. This is weird. YouTube streaming has always been weird. I apologize. Let me make sure that everything is running, and let me make sure the chat is properly being displayed. Huh. Can't actually see the stream going up, even though it's telling me it's up. Okay, so the chat is working. It looks like the stream has indeed gone up, I just can't see it on my side. Which is kind of annoying, but at the same time, it's not that big of a problem. Alright, let's take one more look. Oh, okay, yep, it's working. There we go. Oh, thank you very much, Keeper. I've been trying my best to increase the quality as much as possible. Just trying to get as much information out there so that people can enjoy it. Just sharing information is honestly very valuable in games like this. There's also been quite a bit of conflicting information that comes around, so I try my best to at least condense it into small bits that people can enjoy. But yeah, it seems like the stream is now finally working in the proper way. We have indeed gone live. It went live in the other section. It looks like instead of accepting the premiere that I had set up previously, it just made another stream, which is annoying, but I'll see if I can figure that out later. I should probably inform the people that were waiting on the other premiere that the stream went out in a different place. Let me see if I can join the other one real quick, and then we'll go ahead and start with the proper discussion for today. We got quite a bit of information regarding the future events for Genshin Impact, and I'm honestly impressed. And at the same time, they showed off a lot of really good stuff that I'm really excited for. So I really do want to discuss a lot of this information. The excitement is real, I'll say that much. I do want to keep my objectivity as much as possible, but from everything that I can see, I have seen 0 negatives so far, so I'm really happy with how patch 1.2 is looking. Oh really, yeah, Zhongli is probably the most fun character that this game has at the moment. It's just, he really needs those buffs. He really needs those buffs just to put him in the location where he should be. Albedo is looking amazing. I want to discuss him further, now that he's actually been released, or well, revealed, and that we can discuss information without fear of getting a copyright strike for leaks. I want to discuss him further in a lot of detail. I'm probably going to do a pre-release analysis of him at some point or another. As it stands right now, my work schedule is kind of all over the place. I want to catch up with all the things that I want to put up. I'm working right now on the Xin Yan analysis. Xin Yan is also looking like an incredible character that a lot of people are going to get a lot of use of. So I do want to make an analysis for her. And now that the new artifact sets have been released, or have been revealed, my bad, Chong Yun is looking like one of the better DPSs that we have available. And that is definitely something that I want to take a look into, especially now that we're going to be pretty close to 1.2. Oh yeah, VA, there's a lot to Albedo's elevator skill. I originally thought that it was going to be very clunky and hard to work with, but the way that they designed it, it actually makes it very easy to work with, and it looks like it might, as annoying as it is, it might legitimately make Amber into a valid DPS. As annoying as I find that. Because I really want Amber to get buffed. But regardless, let me go ahead into the other live stream and inform the people over there that for some reason, my livestream software created 2 live streams. It looks like everybody who was in the other live stream already came over here, so that's good. Alright, so yeah, now that everything is working properly, let's go ahead and start with the actual discussion. As I've mentioned already, Genshin Impact released their updated trailers for 1.2. We're going to be getting that update on the 23rd of December, just one day before Christmas. A really good Christmas gift, if I'm being honest. They've been showing quite a bit of information regarding the new events that they're going to be planning, as well as new things that we're going to be getting so that we can play with. And I'm happy to announce that I'm impressed with what they've shown. Pretty much every single aspect of this patch seems to be positive, not only for a majority of people, but even for content creators. They showed a new thing that they've been working on for photo pictures, that they are revamping that, and I use that mode a lot in order to make my videos. Some of you might have noticed, but being able to grab animations from the base game itself is going to help a lot of people. Oh yeah, okay, that is actually very important. There are 3 Primogem codes right now that are going to expire in like 6 hours, so go ahead and make sure that you redeem them as soon as possible. Okay, if you could do me a favor and could you place those codes into the chat, that would be really helpful. But yeah, I do want to go ahead and discuss through a lot of the topics that they've shown. I think we're going to be starting mainly with some of the new features that we're going to be getting in 1.2, as well as discussing a couple of the events, and then after we finish that, we're going to move over into Ganyu and Albedo, which is what a lot of people are very interested in as it stands right now. And as I said in my previous stream, I was very worried for Ganyu as a character. From what we got from the leaks, she looked awful. I'm just going to be honest, she looked awful as a character. I saw a ton of flaws that could hinder her potential quite significantly. From what we saw in this livestream that miHoYo did, almost every single one of the flaws that I had with her are completely gone. As it stands right now, Ganyu is looking like an amazing character that at a bare minimum is going to sit at A+, and she honestly has the potential to be one of the S+ characters in the game. It's looking pretty good for Genshin, not gonna lie. But let's go ahead and let's move over to the first topic of discussion. Let's go ahead and talk. Oh no, the transition didn't work. Sad. Let me go ahead and fix that for the next one. But yeah, we're gonna be talking about 1.2, what's coming with 1.2, as well as the future events that miHoYo has planned. And starting with the first event, and probably the thing that I'm most excited for, is going to be the new event they're showing, which is the Chalk Prince and the Dragon. This event is looking amazing. I already loved the Unreconciled Stars event. I thought that it did a really good job at, for one, keeping us distracted, and for two, expanding on not only the story, but also the world, and giving us, most importantly, things like this, EXP and weapon material ascension, as well as Mora. This event was amazing for that. It managed to get the characters that I had rolled in the Tartaglia banner to the point where they're at right now, and I feel like this event is going to be doing the same for a lot of players. So make sure that you do this event in its entirety. The rewards already look amazing, and if they're on any scale similar to that of the Unreconciled Stars event, we're going to be getting quite a lot of things. As well as, possibly very important for a lot of people, we're getting a free 4-star sword, which is honestly really good. The sword options that we get as a free-to-play players are not ideal for most case scenarios. The 2 craftable options in the Iron Sting as well as the Prototype Ranker, they only work with a very specific set of characters, most of which haven't even been released yet. So I'm very happy that we're getting a different option, and I don't know the stats, but I'm hoping for attack percentage. From what it looks like, we're going to be getting Keeper. From what it looks like, we're going to be getting the actual weapon itself. We're just going to be getting it, and then we're going to be getting the blueprints for the other 2. Those are probably going to be for the other events that we're going to be doing. It looks like they're adding new bosses as well, so I expect that those bosses are going to be dropping the new weapons. And if the new weapons are the ones we get from leaks, some of them are actually going to be really powerful. I do expect that free-to-play players are going to be getting quite a big power boost with this new update, which is something to be excited for. That's only some of the things that have been showing up when it comes to the new event for Genshin Impact. We're going to be getting a new area altogether in Dragon's Spine Mountain, so that means new chests, new locations to explore, new enemies to fight. They showed off a Cryo Hilichurl as well as a Cryo Fatui Mage, so we're definitely going to be getting quite a bit of variance, much needed variance of that in the new update. Will it be at max refinement? That I do not know. I would imagine not, since that just makes more business sense, because they can bring that weapon again at another point in time. I would like it to be at max refinement though, that would be a nice touch. But it's unlikely we're going to be getting it at max refinement. If we do, however, that's a big plus, I will not complain about it. As far as the new area looks, it seems like we're going to be getting a new mechanic that's going to probably tax our resources a little bit. I think that is something that was needed, because at the moment, collecting resources pretty much only meant for upgrading your characters and weapons. Having a bit of a need to collect resources in order to explore a new area is definitely something that Genshin lacked, and that's something that did shine through in games like Breath of the Wild, where you had to prepare in advance if you were going to specific areas, just to make sure that you were able to traverse the terrain properly. So I do think that's going to add something a bit more interesting. My only worry is that it might get too annoying. We have not seen much regarding the new Sub-Zero status that it's going to be applied on you, but it does look like an interesting addition. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I'm not too worried. I think content like this is going to be really good. But yeah, that's pretty much what we're going to be getting as far as map is concerned. Dragon's Spine Mountain. It's the place atop Springvale, if I remember correctly. So yeah, new areas to explore, new chests, good stuff. As far as the remainder of the event, I'm very excited for this event, if I'm being honest. A lot of the things they've showed have been really good. Let me go ahead and pull up the images that I got. Let's see. So, these are the 4 events that we're going to be getting when it comes to, Oh, I'm getting an emergency. Why am I getting an emergency? Okay, so, a bit of stream lag, don't worry about it. These are the 3 events that we're going to be getting in 1.2, alongside the Chalk Prince event. So we're going to be getting something called the Hypostatic Symphony, which is going to be a boss battle event. This is something that I have been looking for quite a long time. A boss battle event is probably one of the best things that Genshin Impact can do in order to keep players engaged. I do not think Abyss fits into that category. I feel like boss battles are definitely going to be the way to go forward in endgame content when it comes to Genshin. That does not mean that Abyss doesn't have a place in the game. I just feel it shouldn't be the proper endgame of everything. But that's something that I want to discuss in a more Abyss-centered discussion. For here, I do want to just focus on the Hypostatic Symphony, which it brings the 3 hypostases that we already have, and it increases their power quite significantly. If anybody has played Monster Hunter World, this is pretty much akin to what I would call the Alpha Hypostasis, or the Gamma version, whatever you want to call them. I'm in love with these constant events as well. It makes the game significantly better, and I am really happy that they have completely dropped the Elemental Crucible event. That was painful to play, but a lot of the new events, they seem legitimately fun. When I was first starting the game and I first found the Anemo Hypostasis, I would fight it constantly, whether I would have resin or not, because I just had a ton of fun fighting it. I was severely underleveled. I should not have been doing that, but it was fun. So I really do enjoy the boss fights in this game, and them adding a boss rush mode is going to be amazing. Yeah, I agree, Pancake. Boss rush mode should be the way to go. I feel like this is their first iteration of it, and if you keep on getting more stuff like it, we're gonna be in good hands. The future of Genshin does look pretty bright. Another thing they're going to be putting is we're going to be getting a Lost Riches event, which is going to be more of a treasure hunt thing. That's going to be a really nice thing to do, just because extra resources are really good, and it seems to be placed in a similar fashion to our current gliding event. I really enjoyed the gliding event, by the way. It was just a really nice thing that you could do, and you could get a lot of resources from it. That 500,000 more definitely came in handy. As far as the other event, we're going to be getting Marvelous Merchandise, which is pretty much the same event that we got last time, where we have to find a guy on the map and we give him a small amount of resources in exchange for primogems as well as different materials. These type of events are just generally really good, especially when new players are coming into the game, because this allows them to progress faster. And for us, more experienced players that have been playing since beta, they give us resources to screw around with. So I'm probably going to be leveling up my Bennett once these events roll out, since the resources that I'm going to be getting from it will allow me to do so. But yeah, really excited from the new events, really excited for a lot of the new content. A lot of the new enemies that we see look very interesting already, and there's a lot of new mechanics that are being put in place. It just looks really good. A lot of buffs to different classes as well, in the form of new artifact sets, which is something that I do want to bring up. So let me see if I can get the picture really quick. Artifact sets. Let's go ahead and put that up. These are pretty much indirect buffs, since they're not really buffing characters. They're going ahead and they're buffing elements, which I think is a good way to go about things. I do still think that they should touch up a couple characters that feel clunky. My main ones that I'm looking at are definitely Zhongli at number 1, Amber at number 2, and Lisa at number 3. I think those are the only 3 characters that really need buffs. Everybody else has found a place where they're comfortable with and where they can become really effective, except for these 3. Yeah, they do have different rotations, Bale. They have different rotations altogether, and they have new attacks. I am looking forward to this. This is definitely one of the things that I want to look into. But yeah, these 2 artifact sets, they are amazing. The Cryo artifact set by itself will probably propel a lot of characters into top tier almost immediately. This artifact set is actually one of the reasons why I'm putting Ganyu much higher than where she originally looked like. Crit rate is possibly the most consistent damage source that you can get in this game, which is one of the reasons why I always place it so highly in my analysis reviews, just because base crit rate by itself is a massive attack bonus that you can't get by other means. So having an artifact set that gives you 40% crit rate, regardless of the requirements, you're gonna fill those requirements, because this buff is so powerful. I have heard rumors regarding that Zhongli is going to be buffed in 1.3. There has been no official confirmation that I can find. If somebody has found official responses, please do send them to me. I wasn't able to find them. As it is so far, it's mostly just hearsay. But it does look like a fairly solid indication of what MiHoYo is thinking. 1.3 is very far away though. I do think that they should buff Zhongli faster than not, but I understand why they would want to take their time with it. Zhongli is an incredibly well-designed character, but in that same vein, he is a very, very dangerous character to put into a game this early into the life cycle. The way that his resonance damage works is very powerful, even if it doesn't look like it on initial release. But it has the potential to break the game altogether. So balancing properly for Zhongli is definitely something that MiHoYo has to do. For those wondering why, it's just because the damage increase of the resonance is almost exponential. It's not perfectly exponential, but it does get very close to that scenario. Just one interaction that we already have access to is that of Zhongli plus the Geo Traveler. These two together can make the resonance damage go from, what, 40 a tick to almost 400. More realistically, it's more like 280, but you can see where the power comes from. 400% damage every 2 seconds is not something to scoff at. So I understand the reason why they're taking their time with balance. I do hope that it's a bit faster than 1.3, because from what we can tell, 1.3 is like in 3 months. But enough about that. The first Cryo set. This thing looks amazing. Just with this thing existing, Chongyun, which I already rated as a very high DPS, is looking like he's going to be even better than he is right now. I was working on the Chongyun build, the Chongyun guide yesterday, and I was taking a look at all the stats, and while the stats don't look that impressive, his ability to apply the cryo status with every single hit is something to take a look at. And now that this set has come around, freeze builds with Chongyun are looking to be some of the strongest that you can get for cheap as a free-to-play player. If you have Chongyun, you have a lot of things to be excited for. This set existing also is going to increase the power of Ganyu by quite a significant amount, as well as the upcoming Ayaka. Cryo is looking to be like a very powerful DPS set in the future. I already thought that it was very powerful because of the Cryo Elemental Resonance, but now that we have the Cryo Resonance alongside this set, let me just remind you of this. These two combined have every single cryo attack dealing 55 crit rate. That's just with the artifact set and the cryo resonance. 55 crit rate. That is the equivalent of having a maxed out legendary crit rate artifact and a maxed out crit rate substat on your artifact set. This is an insane buff that's going to propel cryo characters to the top of the charts very, very quickly. Chongyun is gonna destroy everything. Chongyun is gonna destroy everything. Chongyun Xingque is probably gonna be one of the next top tier DPS teams that we have available. I can already see other teams that are gonna function in a similar manner. This is gonna be crazy. This is gonna be insane. As far as the other set goes, it is a Hydro support set that seems tailor-made for Tartaglia. Let's be honest, if Tartaglia didn't exist, this set wouldn't have this bonus. But I digress. The set itself is actually fairly good. It doesn't benefit a lot of characters. It only really benefits Tartaglia, if I'm being honest, the 4-piece set at least. The 2-piece set, however, is going to be a very nice addition to a lot of high-power Hydro users in the future. The one that I'm looking for right now is definitely going to be Mona. I think Mona's build is definitely going to change quite a bit, at least for me. I'm probably going to be changing my current Berserker Noblesse set towards this new Hydro set plus 2 of the Noblesse in order to maximize my Stellaris Phantasm damage. Both of these sets are going to have an impact on the characters that are going to be more powerful from now on. Tartaglia is definitely going to be a lot more consistent. He's not going to be as unreliable as he was on release. For me, I don't think I'm actually going to switch my set just because I value the 35% extra shield health more than the 8% extra damage from this set that I would be getting from replacing the Bolite set. I do think Bolite set is still going to be a very viable situation. It's just so team dependent that I can't recommend it for every case. This new set is definitely going to make Tartaglia a lot better. So for those of you who have Tartaglia, his utility is probably going to spike up quite significantly as soon as you equip him with this set. But that's as far as it goes for the new things that we're going to be getting in 1.2 and the future events that we're going to be getting. I believe that I forgot to mention, but the weapon from the Chalk event, the Chalk Prince event, is not the only weapon that we're going to be getting. We're going to be getting new craftable options in what appears to be a spear, a greatsword, and a catalyst. probably the more important one of the three is the Catalyst. Spears already have really powerful options in the crafting table, in the Crescent Pike, and even the Prototype Grudge, which is pretty good. And Claymores already have powerful options as well. Catalyst users, they're definitely going to be looking at this new Catalyst. The current Catalyst set that we have in the craftable options include the Mappa Mare, and the other one that was so useless that I don't even remember the name. The one that has HP substat. That one's... it's okay in Barbara. Everybody else, no thank you. But yeah, we're getting this new Catalyst. It's probably going to be really good in a lot of cases, depending on the substat. I was not able to find the substat, however, but I am hoping for attack percentage. We desperately need an attack percentage stat in there. As far as the new content, I do believe that's pretty much it. The next thing that I do want to talk about, and the thing that most people are excited for, let's go ahead and talk about Albedo and Ganyu. These two characters, they're gonna be crazy. Yeah, okay, the Crescent Pike is gonna be better than everything in almost every scenario, but having new spears is not a bad thing, because eventually, in the future, we're gonna get spear supports. There's gonna be some spears users that don't use the Crescent Pike. At least I hope so. So getting spears that can benefit those is definitely gonna be helpful. But I digress. Back on topic, Albedo and Ganyu. Now, which one are people more excited for? Which one do you guys want me to discuss first? Do we want to talk about Cocogoat, or do we want to talk about the Chalk Prince? I'll wait just for a second. It seems like chat is a bit undecided, or my delay is way too big and I can't tell. Either way, I think I'm going to talk about the one that has seen probably the most changes. Oh, there we go. Chat just exploded. Oh my. Let's see. Ganyu, Albedo. We have 3 for Albedo. We have 2 for Ganyu. Let's keep it up. Albedo. It seems like Albedo is winning right now. All right. We're gonna be talking about Albedo. Albedo is definitely gonna be the winner right now. So, Albedo. He's gonna be the first one that we're gonna be getting. And he looks amazing, for starters. Not only on design, he does look pretty good in the design perspective. His mechanics look gorgeous. I can't think of a better support character than Albedo right now. If you're looking for how to build a support character, do not look at Xiongwei, look at Albedo. That is how you build a support character. Some of the reasons as to this is because of his exclusive defense scaling. He exclusively scales with defense, which is possibly the best thing that any support can get. Support scaling for defense is amazing. The defense value of every character in the game is almost double that of the attack. Not only that, but the percentage increases that we get from defense are also much higher than those that we get from attack. For example, a max level defense artifact gives you almost like 55%, whereas a max level legendary attack artifact only gives you like 40%. So that extra bonus does stack up, especially when the base value is so much higher. So having a character whose damage scales this highly with defense is amazing, especially when you put them in the support category. And in the support category, Albedo brings a lot. He brings a lot that other characters just can't. Starting with his elemental skill, his Transient Blossoms. Let me just pull up the information that we do have based on Albedo. His elemental skill appears to drop a field that's massive for starters. It appears to be almost double the size of that of Chongyun. And it has a center. It can be hauled to cast in specific locations, so you don't even have to be near the battlefield in order to activate it. And as soon as the field is cast, every 2 seconds, if an enemy takes damage, a geo explosion will occur with a short delay. This is extremely important, because this means that if you have a character that has a damage convert, you can guarantee crystallize every 2 seconds. It originally said 1 second. It has now been changed to 2 from what I can tell, which is honestly reasonable. The damage at 1 second was insanely high, to the point where if you were able to stack them, which appears to be the case as of right now, but even if it isn't, it's still going to be very powerful. This ability is going to be dealing massive amounts of damage in very short bursts of time. As a DPS tool, this is probably going to be one of the highest DPS supports that we have available. And the fact that he's also from the Geo element means that constant access to Crystallize will make characters with damage converts like that of Kaching, Ayaka, Diluc, Tartaglia, Xiao doesn't resonate, so no Xiao. They're gonna be insanely tanky. If you think that right now Zhongli Shield is tanky, just wait until you get permanent access to Crystallize. Crystallize shields by themselves are not really that strong. They do scale almost exclusively with elemental mastery and levels, and the damage mitigations that they have is not that high. But when you have access to them this consistently, that changes entirely. Think about it, every 2 seconds you're getting a 2000 health shield. That is insane. The total duration of the ability is 30 seconds. Just from one cast, you're getting at least 15 shields. With basic math, that is just so much more health than what other options can provide. On both the defense and offensive capabilities of this ability, this character is looking crazy. I don't think he's at the point of absolute must-have to complete the game. No character is going to be at that point, but he's definitely going to trivialize quite a lot of things, especially for Abyss. And that's just his elemental skill. I haven't even talked about anything else. That's just the elemental skill. That's just the base. It has other interactions that make it even better. This is how you make a support character. This is how you get people excited for support characters. Another fact that it has is that if you go into the center of the ability, he has a small elevator that pushes you up. That by itself is going to be very helpful in traversal situations, because having an elevator is just fun. Being able to move around higher, use it in order to get access to plunge attacks, which are very powerful. Probably not the most efficient, definitely the most fun. It's gonna be very interesting what people do with this elevator. I think his biggest use, as it stands right now, is probably going to be to enable bow DPS to be safe. One of the biggest issues that charge attack bow DPSs like Amber have is that they can be interrupted really easily. That is Amber's biggest weakness. She can be interrupted really easily, and her damage, while very high, does not justify the charge attack time. That's something that Ganyu fixes, and that's something that we're going to talk about, but for now, Albedo's elevator solves one of those issues. So, if you're in a situation where DPS is not the most important factor, basically outside of Abyss, having access to this type of safety net will be really good. A lot of attacks from a lot of bosses will not be able to hit you while you're in this type of elevator. If you just go over to Hypostasis, a lot of their attacks are grounded. It'll be really hard for them to hit you. The skill cooldown. Okay, you ready for this? The current number that I have is 8 seconds. That's the current number that's being given to me. 8 seconds. It counts as a geoconstruct. Keep this in mind. It might be possible to stack them. Yeah, it might be possible to stack them. I don't know if this will work. We definitely have to have proper testing for this, but it definitely looks like it might be a realistic thing to have 2 of the fields overlap each other and both of them hit a same target. This is purely theoretical. I wouldn't rely on this too much. Having a single field already is very, very powerful. If this becomes true, and you can have two of them at once, this character is S+, guaranteed. At a base, his floor is S, but he could potentially be one of the best characters in the game depending on how his interactions apply. The duration is 30 seconds, by the way. 30 seconds. When it comes to the Bolide set, it's mainly because a lot of people don't value it that highly. The Bolide set by itself has a significant number of benefits that it brings to a lot of DPS characters. The value of the Bolide set comes from being able to bring a good buff that's consistent, and in addition to that, brings you safety. One of the majority of reasons why I expect that a lot of people don't bring the Bolide set that often is because, while it is very generic and pretty much every single character can build it, it does require support. So it is not something that every single person can use. Albedo will probably change that quite significantly, in all honesty. This consistent access to Crystallize will pretty much guarantee that the Bolide set will never wear off, even more than what Zhongli can already accomplish, even more than what Diona can already accomplish. I do think that once Albedo comes out, its popularity is going to start to spike up, just because the consistency of its pliant is going to keep on spiking up. The biggest benefit of the Bolide set comes in, it's a 40% attack bonus that applies to normal attacks and charge attack builds. That means that for characters like Keqing, who can weave charge attacks into their basic attack combo, or who can just spam charge attacks altogether while still having a good normal attack, this will become really good. One of the reasons why it's so good on Zhongli right now is because his combo works beautifully with his charge attack. You can charge attack at any point in the combo, and the charge attack does a massive amount of damage. So having a set like the Bolide set is definitely better over other options like Gladiators, just because of that charge attack extra damage. The shield benefit is quite massive as well. Yeah, things are looking pretty insane, okay? I don't expect this is gonna be the final results. I will be 100% honest with you. I fully expect this to be nerfed. I don't think it's gonna be that big of a nerf, however. As it stands right now, just the base design of the ability is strong. Even if the ability did 1 damage, I would still use it. That is how beneficial the survivability of the ability is. Even if it only did 1 damage every tick, I would still use this ability. But yeah, I believe that is kind of the utility that comes from his Solar Isotome. I believe that's the name of the ability. Let me double check. Solar Isotomo. That appears to be the name. Consistent access to Crystallize, consistent damage bonus, consistency all around. It even has a mobility tool included in it. This ability is amazing. It scales exclusively of defense, so do not get rid of those defense artifacts just yet. As far as artifact sets that I would consider running on this character, I'm already looking at the Archaic Petra. Plain and simple, the Archaic Petra does take quite a bit to use properly, but if you're on a team with Albedo, you have a damage convert on your team. That's just how it's gonna go. If you have Albedo, you have a character that primarily focuses on elemental damage, meaning that by the time that you initiate your Solar Isotoma, one of the ideal combos that I can see is that you're going to hit an enemy, you're going to apply your primary element into them, you're going to switch into Albedo, activate his Isotoma, hit that enemy, get the Crystallized Shield, then go back into your main DPS. Think about this for a second. You're getting every 2 seconds extra damage, a Crystallized Shield. For 10 seconds, you're also getting an extra 35% damage bonus. This is the best support that I have seen so far. You just can't compare. This is insane. He's looking amazing. I fully expect him to get nerfed. I fully expect him to get nerfed. So, let's see. Let's take a look at the chat real quick. Now they'll say that Albedo should be DPS and not support. Honestly, it wouldn't even surprise me at this point with what the MiHoYo representatives are saying. It seems like they have quite a lot of ideas that don't seem to align with a lot of what they say. but they're making some really good designs. Like whoever's designing their characters, he is amazing at this. Like I don't know who it is. I don't know what team of people they have working on character design, but all of the abilities that I have seen so far flow beautifully into each other. There are very minimal flaws when it comes to their design. The only two flawed characters that I can see are Lisa, Amber, and, well, Zhongli, but just because he's being put in support for some reason. But yeah, those are the only three characters that I have had a problem with. Every other character just works so well. And Lisa's only problem is that her casting animation is low. Her design is actually insane. Have you actually read any of her abilities? Lisa's crazy. Lisa is insane. She's just very slow. Same for Amber. She has a lot of really powerful damage boosts. It's just, again, she's slow. She's very slow. I know, right? Why isn't Albedo the Geo Archon? He definitely looks like the best Geo character that we have ever gotten. Period. Oh wow, Bennett for Albedo? Really? That would... If that's the case, this would be like the best banner ever. I might just skip on Shao and roll for Albedo instead. Bennett is an insanely powerful 4-star character. So having him just having Bennett's already insane. Having him at C1 would be even crazier. That appears to be the case at the moment, Darth. I don't know what's going on with upper management. I don't know where the final decisions are being set up, but there's some questionable decisions that are being made. A lot of really good decisions as well, though. So I'm not super worried about it. The good decisions that we have gotten so far outweigh the bad ones. We still want to minimize the bad decisions, however. We cannot let that pass. Let me take a secondary look at the chat. Do you think if somebody has Zhongli, should they go for Albedo too? Zhongli and Albedo, I do not see them working well. If you have Zhongli, and you're looking at future Geo characters, this is what you're looking for. A, can that character generate pillars fast and in a consistent manner, or Geo constructs? B, can that character generate those pillars close to each other? If those two things are not there, that Geo character is probably not something that you want in Zhongli. The only exception that I make is Ning Wang. But the only reason why I make that exception is because Ning Wang has really powerful energy generation capabilities once you get her at C2. And Ning Wang does so much damage that it almost doesn't matter. So yeah, if you have Zhongli, Albedo is probably still somebody that you want to roll for, but not for Zhongli. You're looking for different characters. As it stands right now, Zhongli's best support is the Traveler by far, just because of how accessible she is. Ning Wang is also a very solid option, especially if you have her set up. If you have her at C2, she's probably slightly better than the Traveler. If you have her at C6, I just don't see how you get a better team for Zhongli at that point. Rosaria is supposed to come with Albedo. My god, if Albedo's banner is Rosaria, Bennett, Albedo, I'm just gonna say screw it, and I'm gonna waste my 70 things for it, because if I get Albedo, that's an insane character. I want C1 on Bennett, and I want at least C1 on Rosaria as well. Rosaria is looking to be very, very powerful. Yeah, I'm hoping that we get leaks for Zhongli as well, Ferpsel. That is definitely something that I'm looking forward, at least for some of the damage changes. I'm almost done with what I would do to fix Zhongli. I expect that I will finish the script today, as well as the audio editing. And if I work quick enough, the video on my changes for Zhongli will probably come out tomorrow. Not entirely sure, however. That is still quite a bit of work. Quite a bit of work a ways. But that's my current timeline that I'm expecting for that. After that, I'm going to be working on Xingyan, and then Chongyun. I wanted to work on Racer before the end of the banner, but I've had to make, 2 videos on Zhongli, as well as a stream and a fourth video and a third video on the works just to explain Zhongli, it has taken a lot of my time just to get over with Zhongli. So I apologize for the lack of videos, but we're gonna stop discussing Zhongli at some point, I swear. Let's take a look. No new characters for 1.2. Ah, is that official? That's sad. I really wanted Rosaria. But that's fine. If Bennett's still in the banner, I'm probably gonna roll for him. And that probably means that Rosaria will likely come with Xiao, I would expect. That would make the most sense to me. If Albedo does a lot of elemental particles, he can be a Zhongli battery. That is true. That is true. That is something that could potentially be something to take a look at. I did not see him generate any elemental particles when he used his skill, so it's not something that I would rely on right now. Testing will have to be done as soon as Albedo releases. I think the first thing that I'm going to be testing is energy particle generation, interactions with Crystallize, as well as interactions with his elevator. Those are probably the things that I'm going to be focusing on. His burst just seems insane as well. I haven't even talked about his burst, have I? This entire discussion has been entirely around his elemental skill. His burst is looking really good as well. Again, defense scaling, amazing. His base defense looks to be like 800 something. So just having a single defense artifact is already going to put you at 1200 scaling. This character is crazy. This character is insane. His burst works in a very similar manner to that of Ning Wang. Whenever you cast it, it appears to do one big burst of damage, and then immediately it creates 7 of his explosions in the Isotoma field around him. So it has massive AoE, and it has very high damage potential. Probably not the highest in the game, definitely not the highest in the game, but the amount of utility that this brings with how low his energy scaling seems to be. Right now, his scaling sits about 40. The energy cost sits at about 40. Even if it was at 80, I would consider this skill to be amazing. Probably a bit too hard to use at 80. 60 is reasonable enough. 40 is insane. Archaic Petra... Yeah, Archaic Petra's probably going to be better. You can sacrifice defense scaling quite a lot, and the damage bonuses that you get from Archaic Petra are just too much. They're just too much. The thing about defense scaling, or just percentage scaling in general, is that after a certain point, you don't get as much as if you were stacking different factors. So, for example, if you would get a 100% defense bonus on Albedo, you're getting your defense up to 1600. Now, if what you want is to increase your damage, you wouldn't get another defense percentage. Because let's say that you get another 50% extra defense. You have 3 only defense artifacts. You're at 150 defense. If you're only at 150 defense, your total defense will be around 2000. That sounds good, but it's not the best that you can accomplish. If what you're looking for is damage, what you would actually do is you get 2 defense artifacts, you have 100% extra defense, you're now at 1600 defense. If what you want is damage, you then go for Geo bonus. Because if you get the 50% Geo bonus from the Goblet, I believe is the one, at that point, the 1600 that you get is getting boosted by another 50%. So your total damage becomes 2400. An extra 400 damage just for that. And since the shield that Albedo produces does not scale based off defense because of the crystallized shield, which scales off elemental mastery and level, there is no reason why you would stack that much defense. So having an artifact set that not only gives you extra defense on the substats, but also on the actual passive effect is just too much. You're scaling too much things in the wrong order. So yeah, I do not think the Defender's Will will work, even if it was a 5-star. The fact that it's a 4-star will also limit you way too much. Archaic Petra is for sure going to be his best set, unless we get something else. But Since that does not seem to be the case, definitely start farming a Kike Petra. Do I know the numbers for the burst? I know the estimated numbers. I do not know the final numbers, but the estimated numbers... Why? Oh my god. So yeah, he does about as much damage as Zhongli, if not higher. So, yeah. Oh man, Zhongli really needs some buffs, doesn't he? The level 6 scaling, which is the most realistic scaling that everybody's going to be at, sits at around 514%, alongside 7 explosions that each deal 100% scaling. So yeah, that's a lot of damage. Again, these are initial numbers. We can fully expect them to go down at some point or another, so I would not keep those numbers in your mind. I would keep them around that value, but don't take them as the final result. They are likely to go down, they are likely to go up, we just don't know. If I'm being honest, they're more likely to go down than anything. But yeah, level 6 scaling, 1300 damage. Oh my god, this character is crazy. From what I can tell though, that is actually not defense scaling damage. That appears to be... Is it defense scaling? Let me take a second look at this. That does not seem to be defense scaling. So that might actually be a negative for him. I don't think it's enough to offset his positives, however. I just think focusing on the burst might not be the best way to go about it. This does actually open up possibilities for him to be a DPS. My god, if they call him a DPS character. They're gonna call him a DPS character, aren't they? Is it stronger than Ningguang's burst? Let me take a look at the numbers real quick. I believe that at the very least it would be comparable. I think Ningguang might outscale it because of the extra damage that she gets from using it plus her pillar, or her Jade Screen. Ningguang. Damage scaling. It is comparable. It is actually very much comparable. I believe Ningguang drops 9 projectiles total, and her total scaling sits at around 120%. Yeah, it might actually be higher. In its current iteration, it might be higher than Ningguang. Huh. That's a lot of options that this character has. He can be played very effectively as a support, he can be played very effectively as a damage burst as well. It's definitely going to be interesting to build this character. My initial perception of Albedo is that he's very strong. He's definitely a character that's worth rolling for. I think as a support character, he's probably one of the best designs Geo can potentially have. I legitimately do not see how you make a better design for a Geo support. Some streamers are already saying he's a DPS. I mean, I can kind of see it once I take a look at the numbers. I don't think he's going to be a good DPS. He's definitely going to be decent. His numbers by themselves are really, really powerful. The thing is, when you're looking at DPS characters, when you're looking at a main DPS character, the reason why a main DPS character is a main DPS character is because they do not have another role that they can fulfill in the party, and their damage is high. If your damage is really high, but that damage requires you to be on the field, you're a DPS character. That's the thing that currently happens to Zhongli. His damage is high, don't get me wrong, but he has to be on the field. That's why his support sucks so much. Because the second that you move even an inch, all of his pillar damage goes away. If he's the main DPS, he can just move the pillar. For Albedo, you could probably use him as a main DPS, but a majority of his damage appears to be on the elemental scale, which is a field that remains on the entire battlefield. So, if you're using it as a main DPS, you're wasting his potential, just flat out. You would get so much more damage, so much more protection, just having him as a support. Because as soon as you start adding other characters to the mix, you now have Permanent Crystallize, as I've mentioned, Archaic Petra bonuses, as I've mentioned, plus all of his damage. His damage is so fast and requires so little out of him that putting him as a DPS is just not the way to go. Yeah, pretty much. Unless Mihoyo just comes out and says Albedo is supposed to be a DPS. If that does end up happening, I'm almost 100% sure that they just sent the wrong email to the release people. They just changed the tags. I think that's what happened. They just put oh look, we're releasing 2 Geo characters back to back. Which one's the support? Which one's the DPS? They just threw a coin, I assume. But yeah, that's Albedo. He's looking kind of insane. I do think that the best way to play Albedo is going to be as a support, at least with his current kit. It just brings so much to the table in such an easy manner that I just don't see why putting him at any other position would be beneficial for you. I think there might be a world where we have a support DPS hybrid. I just don't think it'd be that efficient. I would much rather you play literally any other character as a DPS, and then just have Albedo as a support. But yeah, as a summary, Albedo will likely be a very good support. He will give access to consistent Crystallize. Him having this consistent of an access to Crystallize will allow him to be a really powerful Archaic Petra support. The defense that he will enable because of this consistent Crystallize will be very, very, very high. I'm thinking base values put a full duration of his Solar Acertoma at least 20,000 shield, with very little investment. One of his best weapons, which I don't even think I've talked about, is going to be a craftable option, because he's a sword user, and sword users have access to Iron Sting, which not only increases elemental mastery, which for him will mean increased shields, but it also increases his damage every time he does elemental damage. And because the cooldown is so low, this will remain permanently. As far as his burst potential is concerned, the burst potential is very, very high. I don't think it's high enough to... well, let me rephrase that. It is definitely high enough to be something to focus on, but I think his E is so much higher, then that's going to end up being the main focus. Let me go ahead and take a look at the comments. I'll answer a couple questions from there, and then we'll move over to the next character, which is going to be Ganyu. If they say he's a DPS, his damage will get nerfed, more than likely. If I'm being honest, even if his damage gets nerfed, as I've said, if his first ability remains the exact same way as it is right now, and it only deals 1 damage, I'm still using it. That is so much defense, that is so much support, that it is 100% worth using. Let's see. Nazi, I'm a very casual player, and Zhongli is my first 5-star. I didn't pay attention to all the community, but after finding out what happened to Zhongli, now I'm just very sad at his lost potential. You and me both. It has been quite a ride. Zhongli has the potential to be possibly one of the best designed characters that I have ever seen, period. As it stands right now, his scaling just limits him too much. That's just a big problem. He's not a bad character by any means. He's still really good. He does his work. He does his work as a DPS effectively. It's so plain and obvious to see for literally everybody that his current state is a state that was forced upon him, and that just saddens the community in general. Let's see, how is your character as a DPS? This is actually a question that comes up often, and surprisingly enough, the GOMC can be a very effective DPS. Not in the way that you would imagine, however. The charge attack of the GOMC is probably one of the better charge attacks in the game. It's not as powerful as that of Kaching's, but it is comparable. The one thing that brings down the GOMC in this department is their base scaling. Their base scaling for damage is very low, comparable to that of 5 or 4-star characters. So even though they are a 5-star character, they're only a 5-star character in name. This lowering of the base attack hurts the GOMC as a DPS way too much. As a support, it's still valuable enough just because of the high amount of energy generation, as well as all the buffs that it can provide, and the high scaling makes it valuable to the point where you don't feel the lower scaling. As a DPS, you feel it too much though. I would not recommend GOMC as a main DPS. If you're a free-to-play character, a free-to-play player, the character that you're looking for as your main DPS will be either Kea or Xiangling. Xiangling being my recommendation. Kea is actually, I hate to say it, but he's surprisingly good as a DPS character. It feels wrong, but it's true. They should make a main DPS Geo set for Ning. I would actually like to see that. As it stands right now, I'm running the Archaic Petra just because the Geo damage bonus is so high. If you really want a DPS bonus for Ning Long, your best option right now is running 2 Archaic Petra and 2 Noblesse Oblige. That'll increase the damage of her skill, of her burst by quite a significant amount, as well as the damage from Geo altogether. That's probably your best bet as it stands right now. I don't think she needs a more powerful set. I would like a more powerful set, but she does have memories of dust, so I can't be too greedy. Let's see. I just hope we won't have 2 underwhelming Geo characters in a row. I legitimately do not see how they can gimp this character. They would have to remove his elemental skill altogether for this character to become bad. So I don't think we're gonna get 2 bad ones. I think at least Albedo is looking really good. Let's see. Still want the Electro Archon to be a healer with a defibrillator. Imagine that. The Savage Electro Archon, who has pretty much set up a complete isolationist policy in their entire country. It turns out they're a healer with a defibrillator. No joke, I would actually like an Electro Healer. I think an Electro Healer would actually be pretty good. I wouldn't like the Electro Archon to be the Electro Healer, but I wouldn't mind an Electro Healer. Do you think Chongyun could be main DPS? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. 55% extra crit rate on a character that I already consider a really good DPS. I was working on my Chongyun analysis, and my base analysis already put him at an A, just because of the Geo Resonance alone, or not the Geo, the Cryo Resonance alone. Now that we have this set, that goes up so much higher. I think he's gonna go into S+. I don't see how he goes lower than that. I'm gonna have to run the numbers. I'm definitely gonna have to run the numbers, but he's a character that has natural attack speed increase, really high scaling because he's a Claymore user, takes full benefit of the frozen condition, as he can also proc the shatter effect, in addition to him having a damage conversion. I think Chongyun DPS is going to become very, very powerful very, very quickly. Yeah, you make a good point. The cryo set is absolutely busted. I hate saying it, but Kea is a good DPS now. I really hate saying it. Not because I hate Kea, just because I thought that his support was definitely the way to go, but that might not be the case anymore. I think Kea DPS might actually be better than Kea support. I'm gonna have to run the numbers, but Cryo DPS in general just looks really, really powerful. They literally chopped off parts of Zhongli's kit so you would know. Yeah, pretty much. Based on the first analysis that we did on the leak data, it looks like they pretty much deleted everything extra that Chong-Li had. In the original data, he had geo damage bonuses, physical damage bonuses, as well as a different interaction with his burst when in terms of scaling. I think he would have been a lot better had those things been released. Even if his damage was lower, he probably would have at least gained a reason to use him as a support. As it stands right now, it's just Petrify is useless. Let's see, Ningguang. Ningguang is crazy. I love Ningguang. I have to finish that analysis on her at some point or another. She is very, very powerful. If you have a Ningguang and you have her at C2, I don't remember if that's the one. If you have the Constellation, which gives you an extra J screen whenever your J screen breaks, Ningguang is probably one of the highest DPS characters in the game. Is Chongyun better than Kea main DPS? Yes, absolutely. Chongyun is busted. Chongyun is busted. Especially with the new cryo set. I already placed him really high. I'm definitely gonna have to place him a lot higher. My initial assessment is S, but I'm gonna have to run numbers to see if he goes into S+. I doubt he'll get to S+, if I'm being honest. He's definitely gonna go into S though. Let's see if we call one of the main MC will be a healer. Yeah, I would like that a lot. I would really like that. I know that when it comes to healing, Barbara now officially belongs to everybody pretty much. So we do have a reliable free-to-play option in Barbara, but I would definitely like to see more, just because Abyss really does require you to have 2 healers. Chaos basic attacks are actually deceptively good. You are correct on that one. He shares a very fast charge attack timer alongside the MC as well as Kaching. Ki is very good. God, I hate saying it, but Ki is good. Could cryo artifacts work for more cryo characters with supports cryo like Chi-Chi? That's a good question. That's a good question. I think Chi-Chi is still going to get a lot of benefits when it comes to the no cryo artifact, just because crit rate is that insane. And Chi-Chi's healing does scale based on the damage that she does, so having crit rate is definitely going to be helpful. I just don't know if it's going to be enough to replace the Maiden of Beloved set. I'm going to have to test numbers on that, but it'll certainly make Chi-Chi a more viable DPS option. An option that, while not the best, will pretty much have infinite healing. Now that you mention it, I have no idea how you kill a Chi-Chi with proper investment into crit rate after this. Huh. That's definitely gonna need some testing. Oh, you have a lot of broadsword users? Yeah. Their playstyle is very slow for a lot of people. Not everybody likes them. I'm in that scenario. They're not my favorite to use. There are a couple that have really good attack speed buffs, mainly Razor and Chongyun. Razor being the standout one, but Chongyun is very consistent as well. Let's see, top 5 best 5-star options for DPS. 4-star, my bad. The 4-star category for DPS. It's honestly gonna depend very heavily on what team you have, but the number 1 potential for DPS is probably Bennett. Just because of how crazy his burst is. His burst just does so much for him as a DPS that he's probably the best 4-star character in terms of DPS potential. The reason why I say this is when you have Bennett at max Ascension, not at max Ascension, I think it's like Ascension 4, I believe. When you have him at Ascension 4, when you cast his burst, his elemental skill becomes a 2-second cooldown. This means that while in his burst, he can generate an insane amount of energy, as well as deal his elemental skill every 2 seconds. So for the entire duration, which not only increases his attack by a significant margin, pretty much almost doubling it. He is using his elemental skill, what, 8 times? 9? Possibly? That's a lot of damage. That is a lot of damage. Especially if you have someone like Chongyun as support for Bennett. Because one of the things that you can do is that you can put the Chongyun barrier. Well, the way that you would do it is you would activate Bennett Burst, switch into Chongyun, put the Chongyun barrier, then switch back into Bennett. Basic attack with Bennett. You now have. I guess it would be more efficient to put the Chongyun burst first, not the burst, the elemental skill. You put the Chongyun elemental skill, switch into Bennett, activate his burst. Now every single one of your basic attacks is cryo. Your elemental skill is on a 2-second cooldown, which means that you can melt every single hit. The damage is just crazy. Bennett is definitely the best 4-star DPS character by a fairly wide margin. That does require you to have Chongyun, however. If you do not have Chongyun, the scale shifts quite drastically. At that point, you now start having characters like Chongyun himself, which can begin, now that he has a new set, begin fighting for that category, as well as Xiangling. I think those 3 are the 4-star trinity, basically, of DPS characters. Those are the ones that you're looking for if you want DPS. As far as other options in the 4-star category, the ones that I would recommend would probably be Kea and Noelle. Noelle is deceptively really powerful as a DPS. The main reason for this is because all of her attacks while under sweeping time get a lot of damage bonuses from her defense, and they're all AoE. And AoE damage massively spikes DPS by a very, very wide margin. So yeah, those are the 5 characters that I'm looking for if you want main DPSs from the 4-star category. Bennett probably at first, Chongyun now at second, now that he has his new set, Xiangling at third, Noelle. I'm gonna have to test Noelle, but Noelle's probably at fourth, and Kea at fifth. Alrighty, let's go ahead and continue a little bit, and we're going to be moving into Ganyu very closely. I'm probably going to be answering 2 more questions. Let's see. Do you think the new Claymore will be good for Racer since it has physical stat as a secondary? I've actually not seen the new Claymore. If you could please tell me what it does, that would be beneficial. Having physical stat as a secondary will definitely help a lot. It's just, as it stands right now, we do have the prototype Aminus, which increases his DPS by 400% every couple seconds. That's very hard to compete with, so I'm gonna have to take a look into that. Let's see, so you have Racer, Chongyun, Bennett. Oh my, I completely forgot about Racer. I did. I put Racer so highly that I'm thinking he's a 5-star character. He's a 4-star. That's entirely my bad. Yeah. Racer is definitely very high in DPS. I think he's the second to Bennett. I would put him second to Bennett now that I think about it. So let me amend my list. It's probably gonna be Bennett, Racer, Chongyun, Xiangling, Noelle. Beidou. Beidou is amazing. I love this character. Her DPS potential is not as high. Her scaling is the lowest out of all Greatsword users, and it's because she has a 5-hit chain. I understand, it makes sense. And her attack speed does not compensate for it. As a DPS character, she falls high, but not super high. She's decent, but that's not her best position. If you have Beidou, you want her as a support. As a support, she brings so much to the table, it's insane why people don't use her as support more often. I think the biggest issue is mainly because, well, let's be honest, the game is a bit laggy, so having a support that you switch into in order to counter is a bit unreliable. But if you think about it, her burst in Stormbreaker has damage mitigation on it. If you have her C1, it has a shield on it. Whenever she's holding her attack, it also gains a shield. So that's a lot of damage mitigation for one character to have. In addition to her elemental skill dealing so much damage in such a short amount of time, I do think that Bido support is definitely the best way to go. Bido DPS is not bad. It is certainly not bad if you want to go that route. I just don't think that it's your best option. Unless she's your only character. If she's your only character, go for it. But if you're in that position, Shang Ling would probably out DPS her. Let's see. What would you use on beta support? Elemental Mastery or attack percentage? That depends on what you're going to be using as an Elemental Mastery. You mentioned that you're going to be using Klee. For Klee, I'm going to have to take a look at the numbers. The base scaling for Stormbreaker is not that high, so a lot of benefits from attack percentage do get lost in that matter. I think Elemental Mastery might be the way to go. I'm going to have to take a look at the scaling, but I feel Elemental Mastery is the way to go. I'm using Elemental Mastery on mine. I have her at like 300 Elemental Mastery, and then I just boosted attack as much as I could. The one thing that you definitely want 100% of the time is going to be electro damage. Electro damage bonuses. What I would recommend is that I would recommend that you go for Electro Charge, because that way you're stacking the highest possible damage in total. But for Klee, Overloaded is just fine. Especially because Klee just does so much damage. Klee is just so powerful that it almost doesn't matter what you support with her. Let's see, what else do we have? Alright, it looks like most of the questions have been answered. Here's one. What about Ningguang DPS? Is she really worse than Noelle? That depends. That depends. One of the reasons why I put Noelle so high is because she does AoE damage. And AoE damage it's just busted. It's just busted. As soon as you hit more than 2 enemies, your DPS potential scales out the roof. Hence why I put Noelle so high. Ningguang DPS is not bad by any means. Her single target damage is absolutely insane. In terms of pure single target DPS, Ningguang probably goes higher. It's just very inconsistent because it takes such a long time to set up. Because you have to basic attack 3 times. Her basic attacks are very slow, and then you have to charge attack. It's not bad. It's just when you put it in a DPS comparison, damage per second, she falls below the other options. That's one of the reasons why I prefer her as a support, because that way a majority of her really high damage remains on the field, and it's very easy to just keep that up, especially if you have her C6. If you have her C6, she's the best support in the game. What do you think is the best DPS in general? I'm gonna sound like a broken record. It's probably Klee. It's definitely Klee. The thing about Klee is that she does AoE damage with her charge attacks, which get a boosted 50% attack damage from her passive, which are also pyro, so that means that she can melt every single one of them, and she has access to the Witch's set. And if that's not to your fancy, she also has access to the Wondrous Troop set for extra charge attack damage. Klee is busted. Klee is absolutely busted. You can animation cancel out of every single one of her attacks, including her charge attack. There are multiple ways that you can set it up so that her normal attack chain becomes extremely fast. Klee is definitely the best DPS character in the game, no doubt about it. The only one that comes even close is Diluc, and even him falls flat the second Klee hits more than 2 targets. Yeah, Diluc comes really high up because the scaling is bonkers. It's just crazy how much damage he can get because of the Witch's set. But a lot of that damage is in a very small center. His AoE potential is not really that high. So in terms of pure DPS, Klee out DPS's Diluc, but by a fairly wide margin. In terms of more reliability against single target, definitely Diluc. So it does depend on what you're talking about. Because if we're talking single target DPS, that's Diluc. If we're talking overall DPS, that's Klee. In Little Girl Beats Gods in DPS. Yeah, I I don't know who the Fire Archon is, but I think he should watch. They should watch for their job because I think I found the new replacement. But yeah, as far as DPS is concerned, there's a lot of factors that can change everything. Single target versus AoE, DPS windows, overall timing, consistency. There's a lot to talk about. The good thing about Genshin is that most characters are designed in such a way that all of them can fit into the DPS role, no problem. It's just there are options that will outscale the rest by a wide margin. Realistically, Genshin is not a hard game. It gets a bit harder in the higher levels, don't get me wrong, so in those levels you definitely want to min-max, but just the open world exploration aspect, which is the main part of the game, you can bring whoever you want and you'll be fine. But with that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about Ganyu. I've been talking quite a lot about other characters, so I do want to bring up Ganyu now that we're here. Cocogoat. Cocogoat right here. She's a roller coaster of emotions. Let's just leave it that way. When I first saw her, she instantly became my favorite character. Instantly. What can I say? I like airhead Oni girls. They're, yeah, best waifu. We'll leave it at that. And then she was set to be a bow user. Now, for anyone that has seen my analysis, I consider bow to be the worst weapon type in the game. I've said my reasoning multiple times. The DPS potential for bow characters is very low because of the way that their normal attacks are designed. They are very inconsistent, they miss constantly. The charge attack takes very, very long to charge. It can be interrupted. You can't move properly while you're in that scenario. It is not good. It feels horrible to play, and the damage payoff that you get from, oh yeah, precision hits are always crits. Let's be real here. If you're not playing with a mouse and keyboard, if you're playing on your phone, you're not going to get those precision hits. If you're playing with a controller, that's more realistic, but it's still going to be hard. A bow just has so many things that are wrong with it that it makes it very hard to think of a good bow character that doesn't just forget the fact that they're a bow user and use only their elemental and burst skills. Like, we have some really good bow characters, don't get me wrong. We have Diona, we have Fischl, we have Venti. How many times have you shot the bow with them? Venti does not count when he's bursting, by the way. I think the only exception is probably DPS Fischl. Or Diona if you're fighting an Electro Hypostasis. Ganyu, surprisingly enough, while not a complete fix, she does solve a lot of the issues that I have with bow DPS. One of the reasons that I was so worried about Ganyu was because a lot of her kits seem to revolve around her Snowflake Arrow. Her Snowflake Arrow is the second charge that he has from charge attacks. That was already raising a red flag for me. If you were telling me that I have to wait for 4 seconds for my character to shoot one arrow, I was already going to tell you that was not going to happen. Thankfully, they did seem to address that. Her charge time for the first level appears to be the exact same, but the charge attack time for the second level is almost instant. It takes like 0.2 seconds, 0.3 maybe, I might have counted wrong, but somewhere around that mark, it's less than half a second to go from charge 1 to charge 2. So that by itself already fixes quite a lot of the problems, because the second charge of the Snowflake Arrow deals a very, very high amount of damage. Enough to the point where it's worth where it's worth charging for it because the second hit does so much damage. So in terms of DPS, she solves the issue of the DPS being so spread out between time. She can compete with other options. Now that brings its own share of problems. If you miss a single hit, your DPS tanks to the ground very highly. So if you're playing Ganyu as a DPS, do not miss. Just do not miss. Yeah, Ganyu as it stands right now, is probably the best archer in the game, period. And that's from just the way her charge attack works. Her charge attack appears to have a charge time of 2 seconds maximum, which sounds like a lot, and it is, don't get me wrong, that's a lot of time that you have to wait and that you can be interrupted in. But the damage potential of the ability is so high that if done properly, it can actually compete with all options. Especially because it's in an AoE, and the AoE is so big. In addition to that, the new cryo set works exceptionally well with Ganyu. So her having this many buffs, because they're just flat out buffs, she almost triples the damage that other archers could currently achieve. Which is pretty much a must if you really want archer DPS to be good. So I do not blame them for going this route. She is the best archer that we have, and probably the best archer that we could have asked for. I still think the charge time is a bit too high. If I'm being honest with you, I would much rather see them just do a blanket change to all archers to reduce the charge time by like half. That would probably be a better change overall. I don't think they're going to do that because that could break a lot of interactions. So I see the problems with it. But yeah, that's her charge attack. As it stands right now, her charge attack, there's a lot of things that we don't know. We don't know if the damage counts as a charge attack bonus from the second snowflake, if it snowflake arrow, if it gets affected by artifact sets. We just don't know any of that. What we do know is that it will be affected by cryo more than likely, mainly because she has a lot of cryo resistance reduction, which is another reason why Ganyu is going to be so powerful, and a lot of cryo damage bonuses, which is another reason why Ganyu is going to be so powerful. This girl has so many buffs, debuffs, and damage potential that just those two things alone probably make her a really good character. Another one of the things that had me originally worried about Ganyu was her elemental skill. Because the way that we got her elemental skill from the leaks, it just sounded like a worse version of Baron Bunny. If I'm being honest, it looks like they grabbed the worst part of Baron Bunny and the worst part of Mona's E, and then they just combined it into a single ability. Ganyu cannot decide a location for her elemental skill. Her elemental skill basically summons a Lotus, and the Lotus basically works the exact same way as Baron Bunny, where it attracts enemy fire, enemy aggro, and it has HP scaling. Those two things are absolutely horrendous when combined together. I have no idea why they have HP scaling for Baron Bunny or for the flower for any case. I legitimately just think that they should just make them immune like Mona does, like Mona has hers. But I digress, that's just something else entirely. The ability itself doesn't do much. The damage is very low, and because it has HP scaling, it'll probably remain on the field for one attack at most, especially because Ganyu's base HP at max level is like 9,000. So the HP scaling is like 10%, it has like 1,000 health. If anything sneezes on the flower's vicinity, it'll wilt immediately. So no, it is not a good ability. However, it looks, and this is something that I have to test, but it looks like the initial casting of the ability does an instance of cryo damage, and it looks like the dash has immunity frames to it. If this is true, That alone makes this ability worth having. Immunity frames are insanely powerful in games like this. One of the reasons why dodging is very important. So having a safety window where even if you're out of stamina, you can still get immunity frames is gonna be really powerful. Now, this is completely unconfirmed, so I'm not even putting it as something that benefits her at this point in time. I'm not even considering it for her final grades, just keep that in mind. The other thing is, at least in the original trailer where they showed Ganyu, she killed an enemy with the initial casting, which means that the initial casting has damage attached to it, which is cryo. That means that she can apply the cryo element, and that's all that I care about. If she can apply the cryo element with her elemental skill instantly, then that'll make Ganyu a good character. Because one of the things that she can do is that she can go up to an enemy, drop her elemental skill, she's now far away, the enemy now has cryo on them, which means that she'll get bonuses from the cryo resonance as well as the new cryo set, and she'll get 55% extra critical rate against that enemy. That by itself is very powerful. Just the crit rate will make it powerful. Combine that with the very high damage scaling that her Frostflake arrow has, and you have a very, very strong DPS character in the works. Now, surprisingly enough, even with all of this, she has more. Her burst is very, very powerful, especially for the type of build that Ganyu wants to do. It essentially works in a similar way to Amber's Burst, if Amber's Burst was not horrible. Essentially, she designates an area. This area is absolutely massive, by the way. It's almost the entirety of Abyss. And in this area, there's a constant shower of icicles that deal cryo damage. The damage of these icicles is completely irrelevant, by the way. It does not matter how much damage they do, as long as they deal a single point of cryo damage. That's all that matters. Because the ability has, while you're in the ability, you get a 20% damage bonus for cryo, and the ability applies cryo element to every single enemy in the area. If you hit an enemy with cryo, again, 55% crit rate. 55% crit rate. In addition to this, Ganyu's first constellation reduces cryo resistance. That is so many buffs for a single character that the buffs alone carry her damage. Yeah, let's go ahead and go with that. Let's go ahead and take a look at the comments real quick. Ganju's decoy is flat out worse than Mona's, but it is better than Amber's. And I honestly consider her Frostflake arrow to be her elemental skill at this point. So I wouldn't even consider her actual elemental skill to do anything. More than anything, you're just casting it for immunity frames if it has it, and applying cryo in a quick manner. That's mostly what it's going to end up being. So yeah, I was pleasantly surprised with her elemental skill not being the absolutely worst elemental skill in the game. Because from the leaks, that's what it looked like. The fact that it has a utility, even if it's a low utility, does help her out quite a lot. Nazi, that would be amazing. I would love if they would do an event like that where they say that Amber wants to go into training and then buff her. It'd be really great, even if they also give you a free Amber, because that would mean that everybody's Amber would be a C1, and C1 Amber is just a flat 20% extra damage. So that would be pretty good. I would like that. You weren't here for Albedo, opinion him. He's probably going to be the best Geo support that we're ever going to get. Just flat out. I don't see how they make a stronger Geo support. I just don't see how they make a stronger Geo support. He's not a DPS. He can probably fulfill the role. I don't think that's his most efficient position. If you're going to get him, you're getting him for his supportive capabilities. as well as his defensive ability to create crystallize at a consistent rate. But yeah, that's basically the short version of Albedo. Definitely worth summoning for. If he has Rosaria on his banner, as some people are saying, if he has Bandit on his banner, as other people are saying, I am rolling for him. I don't care what happens, I'm rolling for him. I should probably skip if I'm being honest, but I really want those characters. If you already have a really good DPS, especially one with a damage convert like Keqing, Diluc, Klee, heck, even Razor for that matter, because his damage, he does do elemental primer capabilities with the burst. If you have a character that can apply an element at a consistent rate, Albedo will probably be one of the best supports that you can get on that character, just because of how defensive that character will be, and just because 35% extra damage for that is so high, especially when it's so consistent with a Petra support. It's definitely worth it. Alright, so with that, let's go ahead and continue back to Ganyu. Overall, Ganyu is very simple as a character, so it's kind of hard to find many faults with her design. She is very much centered to be a DPS support hybrid. Her supportive capabilities with the amount of buffs that she can provide for cryo teams is very high. She uses those buffs very well by herself, but she'll probably definitely fit into a secondary support role. I think that's where she's going to be shining the most, because while her archer DPS is not bad in the slightest, it's definitely powerful. It's unlikely to be able to compete with other options that we're going to be getting, like that of, well, Chongyun for starters, and Ayaka. I think Ayaka will likely out DPS Ganyu by an okay margin. It's probably not going to be that high. The biggest thing that Ganyu has going for her is that she is definitely going to be an AoE DPS. So pairing her with another DPS that can do single target will probably be the best option for you. Especially if that DPS is cryo. I think she's going to fill this weird niche that's definitely not been filled before, but she's probably going to play similarly to Tartaglia in that manner, where whenever there is a high amount of AoE targets, you're going to be using Ganyu primarily, and then when the targets get reduced to a single number, you're going to switch to a primary DPS that does single target. I think that's more than likely where Ganyu is going to stand. Either support or DPS is going to work perfectly for her. She fits into both roles magnificently. Pretty well. The fact that it's also ranged DPS is very helpful. So having both of them in a single team is going to be very, very useful. Ganyu C6. I have to talk about this. If you're looking for Ganyu, if you're looking at Ganyu, the C1 is where you stop. Here's the thing. Dew Drinker. That is the C1 that we currently have. Taking damage from a charged level 2 Frostlake arrow reduces enemy cryo resistance by 15%. A hit also regenerates 2 energy for Ganyu. This ability reduces cryo resistance and gives you energy for Ganyu. This is what you want. This is what you want. This is where you stop with Ganyu. Now, why is this where you stop with Ganyu? Second ability. You gain an additional charge of your E. I have already established that her E could not exist, and if her E doesn't exist, nothing changes for Ganyu. Her E is the worst part of the kit, and it is so irrelevant that I don't even think it exists. I'll throw it if I do get one Ganyu. I'll throw it every now and then just to get elemental particles, I guess. But it does so little that I don't even think the casted animation is worth it unless it has immunity frames on it. Next levels. We have 3rd level Sea Constellation, which is just extra damage, completely unnecessary, absolute overkill, especially with the price that they're asking for you. 4th Constellation. Enemies standing within the AoE of Celestial Shower take increased damage. The damage strengthens over time, and it scales to a maximum of 25%. This is really good, don't get me wrong, but keep in mind, This passive will cost you an average of $1,200. Is 25% extra damage worth $1,200? I do not think so. Hence why I recommend that you stop at C1 if you are going to be spending for her. The next one, basic, it just increases the damage of her skills. And the last one, C6. Now, we have historically thought of C6 constellations to be the most powerful thing that a character has. Zhongli has infinite healing with his, Tartaglia has infinite access to his E with this, Klee is just busted in everything she does, so I'm not even going to mention her. Diluc has probably some of the highest single target DPS when he's at C6. We have been trained to think of C6 as the highest possible damage that a character will get. Ganyu C6 is the worst constellation to have ever existed in this game. It is so laughably bad that if it was a free part of the ability, I would still call it bad. Do not go for Ganyu C6. It is so laughably horrible that it is flat out a spit in the face that they ask this much money for it. Let me go ahead and read the ability and I'll explain my reasoning. Using Trial of the Killing causes the next Frostflake arrow shot within 30 seconds to not require charging. That sounds good, right? Let's take a look at Trial of the Quillen, shall we? It has a 12-second cooldown. Even if you were to use it, and then immediately shoot an arrow, what exactly are you gaining? Trial of the Quilling is a horrible ability. It is one of the worst abilities in the game. The only saving grace is that it does cryo damage. That is legitimately the only saving grace of this ability. The dash animation takes a very long time that you could spend just charging the ability overall. There is no reason why you would ever use this ability for anything. So having an ability that justifies its use is still a bad ability, because there is no justifiable reason as to why you use this constantly. The C6 is horrendous. It is absolutely horrendous. It does nothing for Ganyu. Do not even bother about it. So yeah, if you're going to be summoning for Ganyu, and there's a lot of reasons to summon for Ganyu. She has a lot of cryo support capabilities, and her DPS potential is probably the highest out of every archer that we have ever gotten. The fact that it's AoE is also very massive. The fact that we have the new cryo set that works really well with her is also very big. The fact that she'll pair really well with existing cryo characters like Kea, as well as Chongyun, as well as the upcoming Ayaka, will also pair her really well. The fact that she's more than likely going to be a really powerful unit to use alongside Rosaria is also going to be really good. Ganyu is looking amazing, and that is entirely because of her normal attacks and her burst. You could remove the E button from your keyboard entirely, and Ganyu would still be a good character. So yeah, that's Ganyu. Let's go ahead and answer some of the questions, shall we? Let's see. Do we know what Rosaria does? We know very little about Rosaria so far. We don't actually even have scaling for her at the moment. We only know that she is a spear user, a cryo element spear user at that, and that her passive effects increase crit rate by a significant margin, as well as attack speed. That alone is powerful enough for me to want her, because she looks to be one of the better DPS that we will get. I think she might honestly be higher than Shang Ling, depending on what we get, just because crit rate is that powerful. We'll have to see what the full kit is. We don't even know elemental skill. We don't even know burst, anything about the burst at the moment. The only thing that we know is that her normal attacks are going to be very strong. Let's see. What's C6 Bennett? Let me go ahead and take a look at you. That for you. I do not know what C6 Bennett is. The only place that I stopped was at C1, because that's where I consider him to be the most powerful. Bennett. Let's see. Bennett. Sword, claymore, or polearm wielding characters inside Fantastic Voyage gain 15% pyro damage bonus, and their weapons are infused with pyro. Oh, okay. That's... That's kind of powerful. That's kind of powerful, I'm not gonna lie. 50% pyro damage bonus is a very powerful bonus overall, but the fact that it applies a damage conversion of the best element type in the game, that's yeah, that's really, really good. That's actually kind of crazy. Do I think it's worth the C6? Probably not. But if you have it, it's not bad in the slightest. I do see that it could cause a couple issues regarding certain characters that want to use physical damage instead of pyro. But the damage bonus is so high that it might just be worth using pyro instead, just because melt is so good, and Abyss is currently set to be kind of like the place where pyro characters shine the most. So being able to just turn any character into pyro is very strong. So yeah, Bennett. That's Bennett. I don't think the C6 is bad. It's just the utility of where it goes is very limited. I think a majority of characters don't benefit from it in the slightest, but there's also a lot of characters that do actually benefit from it. So it's kind of hard to decide. I personally wouldn't get it. I think it ruins a lot of builds a bit too much, just because of how powerful Fantastic Voyage already is. There's a lot of characters that conflict with this interest, because for a majority of characters, you want to build damage bonuses depending on your element. You're not going to build fire damage bonus on your water user, are you? Now, the C6 on Bennett might change that, just because Bennett can keep his burst active 100% of the time, essentially making that character into a pyro character. That just feels like a way too annoying playstyle, if I'm being honest. If you're going for Bennett, I think C1 is probably the where you're happy. Everything higher up is just a bonus. If you get the constellation for extra damage from Fantastic Voyage, that's probably where you stop. Even if you get the C6, there might be reasons as to why not activate the ability. It'll depend entirely on your team composition, however. I think no, actually, not even Shang Ling benefits from that. Who benefits from Bennett C6? Bennett himself benefits a lot from that, since that pretty much makes him 100% pyro. Then again, that would actually remove his benefit from Chongyun, so that might not even be the best case scenario. Huh. The ability has a lot of potential, but I don't think there's a character currently in the game that benefits from it. So yeah, as it stands right now, if you do get C6 Bennett, it might be best to not activate it. Not until we get a character that can take advantage of it. Yeah, this looks weird. I think whenever we get a character that has a very low elemental skill that's Hydro, that character will probably fit really well with this Bennett version, since Bennett would essentially become the Chongyun of his combo, basically. I think what this ability requires in order to be good is a character with a Hydro elemental skill that has at a bare minimum like a 4-second cooldown. I think that's what we're looking for. It has potential, don't get me wrong, but nobody can use that potential right now. Kea? Even Kea doesn't like this, because Kea relies a lot on the on having the cryo element on targets, and Kea wants. If Kea wanted something like this, he would want a water conversion instead of pyro. That way he can freeze enemies and consistently get damage bonuses. Yeah, that's weird. The ability on paper sounds crazy, but we just don't have any characters that take advantage of it. So I can see why people are saying C6 Bennett is bad. It's not bad. It's just not useful at the moment. Once we get different characters, that'll probably change. As it stands right now, if you do have it at C6, do not activate it. That could actually make it much worse for you. A Hydra Diluc. If we get a Hydra Diluc, Bennett is becoming the best. Bennett is becoming the best support of that character. So yeah, that's the question regarding Bennett. We're pretty much now gonna enter Q&A, as I pretty much discussed the topics that I want to discuss. So let me go ahead and change the scene editor. Alright, so yeah, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna go for Q&A. I think I'm only gonna continue streaming for about 10 more minutes, so go ahead and drop any questions that you would like me to answer right now. If I have Benti, which character do you think will work better with him? Ganyu or Albedo? Ganyu, 100%. Ganyu. Ganyu, Benti, I already put it as one of my god compositions in the game. If you have Ganyu at C1 and Benti just with the Benarir set, the damage potential that these two combined can achieve is honestly probably the highest in the game. I think the only way to get higher would be like Venti, Mona, Bennett. That's probably the only way to get it higher. But yeah, if you have a Benti, Ganyu is looking like your girl. Let's see, let me go take a look at other questions. How about C6 DPS Bennett with Chongyun from Melts? C6 Bennett actually hurts himself in this case scenario, because if you have Chongyun for Melts, what you want is Chongyun's damage conversion to be the one that applies first. That way, Bennett can do the following: he can basic attack a target once, then go with a C, basic attack the target again, go with a C, basic attack again, and just keep on doing that for the entire duration of the burst. That'll get him a lot of energy in the process, just because of how much energy generation he can have in this scenario, and every single one of his E attacks will have the melt reaction with it, so basically doubling his damage. If you have a C6 on Bennett and you try the same thing, now every single one of Bennett's attacks is fire, and you only get the initial melt, so you end up losing way too many multipliers for that to be worth. So yeah, if you have Bennett, do not activate C6. You will lose a lot of DPS in the process. At least not right now. I think in the future we might get a character that benefits from this type of conversion, but at the moment we just don't have that character. The only one that I could think that would maybe benefit would be Bido, but that feels more like a stretch than anything. It would enable consistent access to Overload through Stormbreaker, but even that doesn't feel that good. Do you think Shao in the beta state would be overpowered in the meta? I don't actually think Shao in the beta state would be overpowered at all. I think the beta was an entirely different beast that no longer serves a useful purpose in terms of DPS comparisons. Enemy scaling was too different. A lot of the things in the beta just don't exist anymore. A lot of the numbers also just changed too much. If we think about it from a realistic standpoint, every single one of his charge attacks doing 26,000 damage is actually fairly low when you compare it against characters like Diluc, Bennett, Klee, Tartaglia. Tartaglia maybe not that much, he's more of a AoE DPS, but there's a lot of characters that can accomplish the same result that he's doing in shorter windows that don't legitimately kill yourself. Um, so yeah, I don't think Beta Shao would be overpowered. He would be strong, don't get me wrong. He would be very strong, but I don't think he would be that overpowered. He'd fit into the category that most characters are. I don't think we're going to get Beta Shao, however. It's more than likely that he's going to be changed quite a bit. For starters, he's probably going to get a charge attack, so we're going to have to see what that's about. And we're going to have to see what they do with the plunge attack damage. One of the things that really holds Shao down is that he doesn't have any damage multipliers. He's an Anemo character in the end of the day. Swirl is not good for damage bonuses, and the amount of things that he can get that would actually benefit him are very low. For the most part, he can't wear Ben-Rear set effectively because the damage is just too low. Gladiators doesn't increase his charge attack damage, and the only other realistic option is probably going to be the Bolite set, if I'm being honest, because I believe that plunge attacks count as charge attack hits. So Bolite set is probably his only realistic option as to how he increases his damage even more. And while the damage bonus from his burst is really strong, I believe in the beta it was sitting at like, what, 80%, I think? That's still not as strong as what characters like Klee and Diluc get from Melt. The benefit that Shao brings to the table, however, is that he doesn't have to have a specific support to get those benefits. So he can essentially set up other characters to do extra damage for him. For example, pairing him with somebody like Albedo, which I think is going to be one of his best supports in order to get Stormbreaker hits consistently. One of the biggest issues that Shao does have, though, is because that benefit that he gains in the extra character slot gets immediately taken over by his need to have a healer. So, well, would he be overpowered if we got the exact same Shao that we got in beta? Probably not. I still expect that he's going to get nerfed in one way or another, but I do think that his damage will still remain somewhere around Kaching levels of powerful. If not, maybe low investment Diluc. Shao wasn't a P, it was the old Noblesse Oblige set. Yeah, more than likely. I keep on hearing rumors of the old Noblesse Oblige set, which was busted as hell, apparently. I don't think Beta Shao would be overpowered by any means. Not in the current state of the game. He would certainly be strong, probably top 3, right behind Diluc in all honesty. His AoE would definitely help him quite a bit. That is something that we have to take into account as well. So he would definitely score high. He would definitely score high. I just don't think he would be the most overpowered thing. I don't expect that we're going to get Beta Shao anyways. Most of my numbers that I'm running on him already put him at 50% extra damage on his burst, which is a fairly big hit as to what we originally have. Anything higher is probably going to be really good. I'm already preparing for the worst, and he still looks like a good enough character. So I have no worries in that regard. If they pull a Zhongli on Shao, they already got the hate of their lives. I do not think that they would do that. If anything, they're going to buff him just to make a point. I have a feeling this is gonna bite you in the back soon. If it does, it does. That's my opinion at the moment. If I'm mistaken, I'm mistaken. I'll take the hit for that one. Let's go ahead and take a look at the other questions. Can Noelle C6 do 20k on a hit on sweeping time? Oh, and 20k, that is low. If you have sweeping time, and you're setting up your Noelle properly, you're probably gonna be hitting significantly higher than that. C6 Noelle is by far one of the characters that I rate the highest in this game. Having a character that can deal that much AoE damage consistently, in addition to having healing and a shield, I just don't know what to tell you. That's like the most broken character I've ever heard in my life. Expectations of the Dendro element. Frankly, when it comes to Dendro, there's very little things that they can do. My expectations for Dendro is that it's going to be something along the lines of buffs or debuffs for the enemy. I think that Dendro's primarily going to be a primer element, and then it's going to change depending on what it primes with. I expect it to be mostly buffs in that regard. I'm imagining something like, if you set an enemy that has Dendro on fire, it'll set a DPS dot on the enemy. If you freeze an enemy that has Dendro, they will have their defenses reduced. If you electrocute a Dendro enemy, you will get X Factor or whatever, something of the sort. The one thing that I do want to see, that I would actually like to see a bit more, would be if Dendro becomes a multiplicative damage element for Cryo. I do think that that is one thing that Cryo is missing. Granted, now that we have the Cryo set, that might not be necessary anymore. So yeah, we're gonna have to see. I think Dendro's more than likely gonna be the debuff element. The debuff / buff element. Take a look at other questions. What Melt Enabler for Klee and Diluc? My personal preference is Diona. I think Diona is definitely the one that I want to go with. Going with Chongyun for Diluc just doesn't feel good. Your DPS drops a bit too much as soon as you use Dawn, and Dawn is already such a powerful ability that you want to be using that constantly. So I'm definitely looking at enablers that can set that up easily without having to worry. Diona at C1 can consistently spam her burst. She's my go-to option for those two. If you do not have Diona, the next in line is Kea. Kea is probably your best in line. Ganyu could probably fit the role as well, but you lose a bit too much of her beneficial side for that to be worth. You'd be better off running Ganyu in another team and then just having Kea on that one. Let's see. Last time you were thinking Albedo was going to be amazing sport and Ganyu was going to be awful. What do you think now after the livestream? I think that after the livestream, Albedo is still going to be absolutely amazing. I do not see how they can ruin this character without just removing him from the game outright. As I've said, even if his elemental skill does 1 point of damage, it will still be useful enough to the point that he will be an amazing support. And when it comes to Ganyu, my mind completely changed with Ganyu. The animations on Ganyu are good enough to the point where she's gonna be a very decent DPS. The numbers do not lie. Her fast charge attack timing for the tier 2 of her charge is very powerful. The AoE scaling is very powerful. The way that it works is very powerful. And the cryo set is very powerful. Ganyu is looking to be a very flexible character, the absolute best bow character that we are likely to ever get, if I'm being honest. But yeah, she's good. She's a lot better than I originally imagined. I had placed her support capabilities as an A from the leaks alone, because her supportive capabilities when it came to the cryo element were really powerful. Now that the cryo element is so much stronger, Ganyu becomes so much stronger in that regard. As so her support capabilities are out the roof. They're easily S tier. They're easily S tier in that regard. And her DPS potential with her Frostflake arrow being so much better than what I originally imagined has changed my mind entirely. The charge attack for the Frostflake arrow is about 2 seconds. And if we think about it, that is... let's think about it in terms of an elemental skill. This is an elemental skill that in 2 seconds does about 500% scaling. That's a lot. That is a lot. Even charge attack characters have a hard time doing that much damage within 2 seconds. Not that it's not possible, there are characters that can do that. But the fact that she can compete with DPS characters without shooting a single normal attack is very impressive. She's definitely going to be a bit of a flex, though. I do not think that using her primarily as a DPS character will be beneficial, because she suffers a lot when she gets put in close range situations. What I think will be the best case scenario for Ganyu will be to pair her with another cryo character that can act as an effective single target DPS. What I'm looking for is characters like Kea, Chongyun, Rosaria, Ayaka, pretty much every single cryo in the game except Diona. She's looking strong. She's looking very strong. 55% crit rate. is nothing to laugh at. If you're going to summon for her, though, her C constellation is absolute garbage. Her C6 constellation is absolute garbage. Do not even bother with it. C1 is the way to go. If you're going to be summoning her, you stop at C1. For main DPS, you don't even need C2. C1 is already strong enough. C2 is just an extra. It's just an extra bonus. Which, in all honesty, it's kind of debatable if it's even a bonus. Their elemental skill is so bad. It is so bad. I don't even think the casting animation is worth it. That just feels like time that you're wasting from your charge attack. Let's see, if the constellation guess of Albedo is true, do you think Albedo can be main DPS and stay on the field with the amount of damage he puts out at C6? Let's go ahead and take a look at what the current C6 for Albedo is. If active party member within the AoE are protected by a shield created by Crystallize, Solar Isotoma increases their damage by 17%. That sounds like a support ability. I have no idea how this would enable DPS Albedo. This is a support ability at all. Let's see, what else does he have? Solar Isotoma increases plunging attack damage by 30% for active party members within the AoE. Again, support ability. This is not exclusive for him, and his plunge attack scaling is not that great. Potential shall support confirmed. This is a C4. Nobody's gonna. There's very few people who are gonna have this. Let's see, what else does he have? Transient blossoms generated by Abiogenesis Solar Isotoma grant Albedo Fatal Reckoning for 30 seconds. Each stack of Fatal Reckoning increases damage by 30% of Albedo's defense. This stack up to 4 times. Okay, this is good. Unleashing Rite of Progeniture, that's the burst. Tectonic Tide consumes all stacks of Fatal Reckoning, increasing the damage dealt by Tectonic Tide and Fatal Blossoms based on the number of stacks consumed. Huh. This is a good ability. This essentially makes a DPS hybrid possible at C2. This is the C2 that's currently stated for his release. I'm just running the numbers really quickly. I don't think it's enough. I just don't think it's enough. As a main DPS, if you're using Albedo as a main DPS, that means that you have other characters that are supporting him. You have other characters that are the primary character for the elemental reaction. Likely somebody like Barbara, Xingyan maybe. But you're just losing out so much. Maybe for a physical DPS variant. I think a physical DPS variant with C2 might actually be plausible. I still think you're better off just using us as a support, but I can understand why you would see him as a DPS if you have him at C2. I don't think he'd be busted by any means, however. The percentage is entirely set up by the defense, and from what I can tell, this appears to be a stacking bonus similar to that of the Crescent Pike. So while it does a lot of damage, it doesn't scale that high up. It's a mini Crescent Pike passive, so it's not bad by any means. It is definitely a build that can be used. I just think the support brings so much more that using him as a main DPS might be the wrong way. But I can see why people would want this. It's certainly not bad. Let's go ahead and take a look at the other questions. Do you guys think that with the new region there will be a new shop, so you will have an option to buy another set of prototypes? That's a good question. For the most part, I think Inazuma will likely have another shop that will have a set of prototypes. I don't think Dragonspine will have that, because from what we can tell, Dragonspine is just another exploration zone. There does not seem to be a population center in Dragonspine. Let's see, is her Q a good aura player? No, it is not good. It is a 12-second cooldown that only applies the aura once. It is horrendous. It does its job once. You might cast it every once in a while, but Ganyu E is the... sorry, you meant the burst. The burst is a good aura player. It is definitely good. But it it just suffers a lot in that regard because it brings so much potential to cryo builds that just using it as an aura would probably not be ideal. If that's what you're looking for, go for Diona instead. Or Kea for that matter. Oh, Kea has still been inconsistent in that regard. It is AoE, so that would probably help Klee. But again, I just think Diona is better in that regard. Not a bad option, however. If you want to use it, it is there. I just think you're better off using Ganyu for a team of your own than forcing her into a position that she's not comfortable in. Mainly, my main reason for this is because let's take a look at the current energy cost for Ganyu. This might change, but the current energy cost right now is 80. That's the highest that you can ever get it, which makes sense. It lasts for a long time. The cooldown's also not that long. It's at 20 seconds. I just think as an aura character, it's too unreliable. Her E is absolutely horrendous for that. So I would much rather you have options that are more reliable. Because if you're using her exclusively for melt reactions, you're relying entirely on her. You're relying entirely on her burst or her frostflake arrow. And the frostflake arrow, while it can do a really good job at that, it does take up time that you could be using on the characters that you want the melt reaction in. Mainly Klee, mainly Diluc. If you're taking an extra 2 seconds charging up the frostflake arrow, that might not be worth. Just because you could hit another melt reaction with other characters like that of Diona or Kea. It's gonna be complicated math. It's definitely not bad, especially if she's properly invested. I think she can fit the role properly. I just don't think she does it comfortably. Alright, let's go ahead and take a look at other questions. Would you consider someone that can't deal decent, good damage with their normal attacks a bad DPS? Not necessarily. DPS stands for damage per second. So the role of a DPS character in the team is, while that character is on the field, he's going to be the main active character a majority of the time. The reason for this is not necessarily because that character is the one that fits that role, that does the most damage within that role, but because it's the character that you have that fits best into it. The DPS character is actually supposed to be your worst character. I know, that's weird to think about it, but in a realistic scenario, when you're in the late game, I'm talking everything is max, you have everything that you want, the DPS character is the worst one. Because the DPS character is the one that you can't stack damage on. The way that you have to think about the game is we have 4 characters in total. You have the main character that's going to be taking most of his time doing his DPS damage, and then you have the other 3 characters that are going to be doing their damage in short bursts of time. So the idea is that the DPS character will try his best to remove low priority targets, and then the other characters will come in and clean up the rest with their high burst damage on their elemental scale or bursts. Alternatively, you could go the other way around and have it so that the support characters are the ones that do the AoE damage, and then you have your primary main character be the single target DPS. That works really well for characters like Diluc. But it mostly depends on if you can accomplish this role properly. I think Ganyu, with her normal attacks, is possibly the worst that you can get in terms of DPS, but her charge attacks fulfill the role of an AoE DPS very effectively. So even though her normal attack scaling is bad, and don't get me wrong, it is bad, her charge attack scaling is so good that doesn't actually matter. Now, can we accomplish this with a character that doesn't do charge attacks? Kinda, yes, but those are very, very few in between, and the only character that can accomplish the role of main DPS without actually having good attack power is that of Bennett. Mainly because his elemental skill, while he is in his burst, has a 2-second cooldown. So he's possibly the only character currently in the game that can be a main DPS without actually focusing on his normal attacks, because he is an elemental skill DPS. But for that to exist, we need low cooldown elemental skills. The only two that we have access to at the moment is that of Lisa and Bennett. And Lisa unfortunately can't fulfill that role effectively. You can try, it's actually kind of funny, it does decent damage, it's not recommendable, you'll probably die a lot. Bennett, on the other hand, he does fix that issue because his burst is just crazy. It's just that insane. So yes, I do think there are characters that can fulfill the DPS role without having good normal attacks. I just don't think those characters are many. It's the exception, not the rule. You might regret not getting Albedo, depending on who you're going for. Yeah, Albedo is looking like a very, very strong character. I think he's probably one of the ones that's going to scale the best into the game, into the life cycle of the game, just because of how crazy Crystallize is and how flexible he seems to be. Even at C0, he's insane. You don't have to worry about getting a lot of his constellations in order to get a beneficial effect. Getting his C1 is definitely going to be helpful. Every time that you get Transient's Blossom, you get 1.2 energy. I hadn't even read this, and I still considered Albedo to be an S+ character. Oh my god, he's gonna get nerfed, isn't he? He's gonna get nerfed so bad. I might consider not doing an analysis on him so he doesn't get nerfed that badly. Alright, let's go ahead and take a look at other questions. Do you think Albedo and Ganyu will provide unique support that we would be missing out on heavily if we don't summon for them? Or is it safe to skip them? That's a hard one. That's a hard one. I think both of them have really, really high potential. I think these two characters are definitely they're definitely alongside Tartaglia when it comes to potential in characters. Because they're just waiting for that one interaction that will completely destroy them and will make the game absolutely easy. I think Ganyu is safe to skip if you do not have a good cryo team already. If you have characters that are really good in the cryo element, I think Ganyu is probably a must. If you have those sort of characters, meaning that if you're planning to get someone like Ayaka, you probably want to get Ganyu as well. If you have someone like Chongyun to a decent degree, you probably want Ganyu. If you plan on getting Rosaria, you probably want Ganyu. But if you don't plan on that, I think it's safe to skip. Mainly because Ganyu in particular is very centered around the cryo element. So if you don't plan on focusing on the cryo element, it's okay to skip. I think Albedo, on the other hand, might just be too flexible to want to skip. Even I'm considering rolling on the banner, and I don't even have enough for a pity. This is gonna be a hard decision, in all honesty. This is probably the hardest decision that we have been asked for in terms of 5-star characters. Mainly because most of the 5-star characters that we have gotten so far have been primarily DPS centric. So Albedo is the first, since Venti I guess, Albedo is the first support character that seems like he'll scale with anybody, just because his ability is so... it just pairs well with everybody. I can't think of a single character that Albedo does not grant a benefit to. He definitely pairs better with other characters, primarily damage conversions, but those are... we have a lot of those. I don't know, Albedo's looking too powerful in terms of value. That's a hard one. That's a really hard one. Let's see. What do you think of the synergy between Zhongli and Albedo? Uh, it doesn't look good. I'd have to do testing to see if it works in any significant way, but Albedo Solar Sotoma counts as a geoconstruct, so that's about the only synergy the two have. Everything else, it kind of seems counterintuitive. If you're using Albedo as a support, you want your main DPS to be a different character other than Geo, because at that point you can get full support from Archaic Petra, as well as you can get the full benefits of the crystallized reaction. If Geo could resonate with itself, that might change, but it can't. So there's no point in thinking about it. Yeah, unfortunately, Zhongli, in his current state, just doesn't compare. I do think that's going to change in the future, but even when Zhongli gets buffed and even when he becomes a good character, I don't think Albedo will pair with him, well with him. What you want for Zhongli on a support, you want a character like Traveler. You want a character that can consistently make geoconstructs and with high energy generation alongside a burst that can generate multiple geostructures. If you're playing Zhongli, you're either using the Geo Traveler or Ningguang. And the only reason why you're using the Ningguang instead of the Geo Traveler is because her damage is insane. That's the only reason. So yeah. Zhongli plus Albedo, I don't see them working well together. I don't think Zhongli needs a rework, in all honesty. I think the design for his kit is really good. There's like there's 2 or 3 things that are keeping his kit down. The scaling of his normal attacks is the first one, and the energy generation of his 2 is the second one. Every other part of the kit it's great. The kit is amazing. The design is beautiful. The numbers just don't match up. That's the only concern. Yeah, when that feels bad. Zhongli looks to be one of the strongest characters we have gotten, but MiHoYo just don't want that to be the case. It's fairly obvious that they pushed him down on purpose. For whatever reason, I do not know, but it seems that that's the case. They're probably going to buff him, and once they do, he's going to become a lot better, because again, his problems don't come from the kit. The kit is beautiful. The problems come from the numbers. The numbers are what are holding him down. And good design but bad numbers is something that you can change really easily. Bad design but good numbers is what you can't change. Synergy between Mona and Ganyu. That would definitely be interesting. It would probably benefit Ganyu a lot more, because Mona's elemental skill is actually good for starters, and the consistent access to freeze would make it so that the DPS of her Snowflake arrow does go up quite significantly, and the CC that the pulsing aura can provide would be really good. I see them pairing really well together. Oh, he's a fisherman now? Oh man, that is so sad. That is so sad. Yeah, Zhongli is not in a good spot. I plan on releasing my summary of what I would do to make him a better character, preferably tomorrow if I can get it out in time. I'm gonna be realistic and just say Sunday, but I'm aiming for Saturday. But yeah, that's pretty much covered everything that I want to talk about. I think I have been going on for a really long time. I've been going on for about 2.5 hours, and I have not eaten. I definitely have to stop the stream. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with this. If you guys enjoyed, thank you very much for watching. Consider subscribing for more Genshin content if you're not already. And yeah, portals.